Tēnā tātou katoa. We have one final session to finish off the day's conference, so can I encourage you all to grab a seat, those of you who are standing outside, just to come inside. You will have plenty of time to get ready for tonight's awards if you are heading off to the awards. But if I can ask you all to take your seats so that we can get our final keynote speaker underway. So in saying that, our next keynote speaker is Alexia Hilbertidou, founder of Girl Boss New Zealand, the country's largest network for young women. A Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree and Queen's Young Leader Award winner, which was presented by Her Majesty the Queen at Buckingham Palace. Alexia was the youngest Commonwealth citizen to receive this honour. A finalist in the 2025 Young New Zealander of the Year, Alexia empowers women in leadership, technology and in sport. Today she shares her own journey and also uncovers what drives the next generation and how organisations can cultivate leadership, innovation and lasting social impact. Can you please make welcome our final speaker of the day, Alexia Hilbertidou.
Kia ora tō flava and warm Pacific greetings. It is absolutely fantastic to be with you all this afternoon. Thank you for that introduction, Jenny. Now, what I'd love for us to do is, if we're in the position to do so, could we all please stand up? All please stand up. Okay, team, we're going to kick it off with a little bit of afternoon yoga. Can I get a oh yeah? Okay, team, look at me. I'm nice and tall, so I'm sure you can see me there from the back. What we're going to do is we're going to go down, up, and we're going to make a pineapple. Down, up, make a pineapple. Hold your pineapple up nice and high so we can see it there. Epic. We're going to cut that pineapple in half. We're going to give one piece of pineapple to the person next to us. Here you go. Other piece of pineapple to the person on the other side. Here you go. Back some pineapple for ourselves. And again, down, up, pineapple for you, back some pineapple for ourselves. Okay, team, we know the drill, so here is how it's going to go. When I say go, we're going to do 3 of those routines. Now, once we do those 3 routines, we're going to high-five the person next to us, we're going to look them in the eye, and we're going to say, "You're awesome, thank you for coming today." Other side, high-five, "You're awesome, thank you for coming today." And then we'll sit back down. But here's the twist. We're going to do all of that as fast as we possibly can, creating chaos in the room today. Nod if you are in the mood to create a bit of chaos. Okay, team, we're starting in 3, 2, 1, go. You're awesome. Thank you for coming today. Give me a high five. Epic. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Amazing. We are feeling fresh. We are feeling fruity. We are feeling ready to get into it today. Thank you for that introduction. Hearing some of those accolades, Buckingham Palace, the Queen, Forbes, all of these opportunities were beyond my wildest imagination, and they became possible not because I was the smartest person in the room or the most popular or because I followed the advice of Dr. Phil, but in fact because I was unafraid to take the uncommon path. And I'm excited to share a little bit about my story and my connection to Generation Z today. But when I was reflecting on where to start my presentation, I thought I would begin with the #1 most Googled question about me. And the number one most Googled question about me is in fact about my parents. Because I think people hear my story, especially as a young person, and they think, who are her parents? What is her stock? So I thought I'd share with you a story now. This is a bit of an embarrassing story, and in my role, often I get to go to very formal occasions, award ceremonies, things like that, and I'll normally be sat next to some sort of diplomat or politician, and I'll bring my mum along as my plus one. And after a few drinks, and always when they haven't asked, my mum will start telling this poor diplomat the story of how my mum and dad met. And she will begin by saying, yes, I met Alexia's dad at a gay nightclub in Mykonos. Now, neither of the men in these photos are my father. This is me just researching my ancestry and where I came from. So my mum was a young Samoan Kiwi backpacker. On her very first OE, she met my dad, a bouncer at a gay nightclub in Mykonos. Very good talent at sniffing out the only straight man in the room. And 9 months later, I was the souvenir from her very first overseas trip, which I think is a little bit more exciting than a keychain. And when I reflect back on some of my earliest memories, my mum taught me many things, mainly not what not to do, but seeing my mum's story and watching her have me at a very young age with lots of life experience but pockets very devoid of cash, I learnt my very first lesson. A man is not a financial plan. I was raised for the first 10 years of my life. Me and Mum shared a studio together, and we had a curtain in the middle of the room. And growing up below the poverty line, I learnt very quickly that the way out of poverty would be education. And I threw myself into it from a very young age. In fact, just the other day, I was going through old files on my computer and I found my homework assignment at age 8. And the assignment was create a CV. Now, does anyone here hire people? Anyone here hire people, got staff or people in their teams? Okay, good. So you can now judge my 8-year-old CV. Now, I quite like it because it gives us a bit of insight into me as a young person and what my hobbies and passions were. And as you can see in that red circle, my hobbies at 8 years old were I like the computer and I like making PowerPoints. Which is quite funny because I now speak at around 100 high schools a year, and that involves making a lot of PowerPoints. I even got to make a PowerPoint for today, living the childhood dream. But from a young age, I was really passionate about technology, and I used to spend my days in the computer lab coding and working on tech. But what I found is as I started to get older, my passion for technology made me feel rather isolated. And I started to feel a little bit like the odd one out. In year 12, I was the only girl in my school's digital technology class, and later in year 13, I was the only girl in my advanced physics class. And I go to coding competitions and science competitions and regularly be one of 2-3 young women in the room. And I really started to wonder whether or not technology was the place for me. I thought someone should do something about this, so I started Girl Boss New Zealand, an organisation to support young women into science, technology, engineering, maths, leadership, sport, business. We're under over 10 different industries now. And it's taken me to possibilities I never could have imagined. Right now, we have 17,500 members, and our members are in over 400 high schools across New Zealand. So to put that number into perspective, currently 1 in 7 of all high school-aged young women are enrolled in Girl Boss, making us New Zealand's largest organisation for Generation Z young women. Oh, thank you. And when I started Girl Boss at 16, I never could have believed that it would take me to places like here, where I met this woman that some of you may recognise, and I received the Queen's Young Leaders Award for services to the Commonwealth by Her Majesty the Queen. And I was selected from over 20,000 nominations, and I'm currently the youngest Commonwealth citizen to hold this honour. Oh, thank you. Now, when I was reflecting on what value I can give to such a good-looking audience, I thought I would begin by sharing a little bit of insight into Generation Z. Girl Boss has been able to grow so quickly and at such rapid scale because of a really clear understanding of Generation Z. I'm part of Generation Z, and they are the new wave of consumers and employees that are flooding into your organisations. And because Generation Z's attention span is measured in seconds, not minutes, we're going to make it a game. And we're going to make it a game similar in style to a game you may have heard of before. And this game is called Tinder. Hands up if you've heard of Tinder before. Hands up nice and high if you've heard of Tinder before. Nice and high. Okay, hands up if you're on Tinder. Never seen hands drop so quick. Thought I recognised you in the back. Now, if you're not familiar with Tinder, the premise is pretty simple. Swipe right equals yeah, swipe left equals nah. So I'm going to show you some traits of Gen Z. You're going to yell out all at the same time, what's swipe right, swipe left, and we will have a great time. Now, fun fact, swipe right is actually used in Gen Z slang today. So the next time a young person in your life asks you, how was that burger? You just reply, swipe right. I can guarantee they will think you are very cool and they will not be embarrassed in the slightest. Okay, team. So, Generation Z, are they side characters? Do they want to be side characters or main characters? So if you think Generation Z want to be side characters, you're going to yell out swipe left. And if you think they want to be main characters, you're going to yell out swipe right in 3, 2, 1. Amazing. We even had some hand signs from the back. I love to see it. That is the correct answer. So give yourself a pat on the back. If you guessed, come on, pat on the back, everyone gets one. We're not stingy with them. If you guessed, swipe right. Generation Z love to have their main character moment. But where does this all come from? We only need to look at our icons throughout history to see why this phenomenon occurs. Okay, team, the 70s. Drugs, sex, and rock and roll. Do we have any 70s babies in the house? Give a whoop whoop. Oh yeah, you guys were a wild bunch. Okay, 80s babies. Yeah. Cross-dressing, Prince. You guys were united by your shared love of these heroes. Can we give a oh yeah if you're an 80s baby? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we've got lots of 80s babies. Do we have any 90s babies? Rap, profanity. Can we give a yeah? Have we got any 90s babies in the house? Yeah. Okay. A few of us. You were brought together by your shared posters in your bedrooms with Tupac and Biggie. You walked into any's 90s bedroom and you saw those same heroes plastered on the wall. Generation Z, who are our heroes? Gone are the days of only Channel 1 and Channel 2. Now, I don't actually know if these days occurred. Can anyone attest there was a time there was only a Channel 1 and Channel 2? Okay, because my mum told me that that was a thing. So I just want to check she wasn't pulling my leg there. So apparently there was a time there was only Channel 1 and Channel 2. Now, and what we saw in that time was that we had very similar media consumption across that generation. You really had Channel 1 or Channel 2. Now, if we were to pull out our phones and put them on the table, we would realize that we're in channel billions. There's not one person who could pull out their phone and stick it on the table that would be similar to any other algorithm in this room. And this has created a phenomenon that researchers call the Netflix effect. Gone are the days of only Channel 1 and Channel 2. Now we want to stop, pause, repeat, and binge watch whenever, however we want. And it's created this really strong desire for personalization and this idea that my entertainment needs to know me, my boss needs to know me, everyone needs to know me, and it needs to be centered around me. Now, this is prevalent in Generation Z, but I also want to make that point that all of us no longer want to watch just Channel 1 and Channel 2. All of us want to have our lives on demand and personalized to us. Now, we can see this come through very strongly in Generation Z, but they are merely the combination of all the most recent inputs. But you too are experiencing those inputs. So if we can future-proof it for Generation Z, we can future-proof it for everyone. Okay, team. Realistic or idealistic? If you think Generation Z are realistic, you're going to yell out swipe left. And if you think they're idealistic, you're going to yell out swipe right. 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh, we're a bit 50-50. The correct answer is swipe left. This is the biggest differentiation between the millennial generation and Gen Z. Millennials were highly idealistic and believed everyone could win. Generation Z were highly realistic and believe only the best can win. Or, to make it a little bit easier for you to understand, they're a bit of a glass half empty generation. Quite a miserable bunch, if I was to sum them up. They're pretty miserable, they are. They've got little hope in the future, and if there's an opportunity to be negative, I promise you, they'll find it. They've lost faith in traditional forms of operation and education. They know that a university degree holds no guarantees, and they're choosing to disrupt the norm. They've watched pens be replaced with iPads, and if they want to get their business education, they don't want to go sit for 4 years. They could choose to be like 9-year-old Eli that lives across the road from me. And Eli is getting his education through his very own podcast, where he interviews different business leaders. Now, I love this quote here by Eli. I'm big about money. I like to be in charge. I like to create ideas and help other people. I thought that was quite godfathery for a 9-year-old. That sums up Generation Z mindset. Generation Z have been raised on compete and achieve messaging. You only need to look at our media. New Zealand's Got Talent, X Factor, Survivor. Not even our love lives are free from competition. Now, Generation Z would love nothing more than to follow in the footsteps of the generations that came before us and spend years at university, at Shadows Bar. I see a few people are pointing out themselves in the photos. But frankly, we're too bloody scared. That's the feeling of Generation Z. We're so scared, we're so terrified, we can't make one wrong decision. We've seen the consequences of our parents' 10 years OEs and delays in getting into the property market. We're so bloody scared, we've stopped drinking. Look at this right here. Look at this stat. Nearly half of all Generation Z have not consumed a full glass of alcohol in the past 12 months. Can you say the same for your generation? Generation Z have even stopped having sex. Generation Z have truly gone mild. Or as my mum likes to refer to us, we're the fun police. We're so scared that we would rather Netflix and chill than go to a party. First generation of teens that would rather hang out at home with mum than go out their front door. So we're going to do a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? So this is the $1 million question for £1 million. Hopefully Sport New Zealand can follow through on that promise I made. So over here, the $1 million question is, what emotion is behind the wheel for Gen Z? I'm going to give you 5 seconds to lock in your answer. I love that little sound effect. Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Yes, you either said C or fear. That's the correct answer. Well done. You are going home richer tonight. Make sure you ask them on the way out for that check. Generation Z's, the driving emotion behind them is fear. Now, working with a generation that is so driven with fear and anxiety can have its challenges. The most pivotal moment in 10 years of running my organisation and working with thousands of young people was actually in the middle of COVID. Now, I'm just going to jump you into some of the headlines that were in the newspaper at the time. This was what was in the paper. I would go to different meetings and with different leaders of youth organisations, and I would hear the narrative of what these people were saying we would be having. I would open up the newspaper and I would see school principals on the front cover of the news saying, "Our children will never recover. This has broken their spirit. Oh, our children, they're going through the hardest time in the hardest times. No generation has ever had to deal with anything like this before." And it just sort of was interesting to me because you'd kind of hear these sort of war speeches, and you'd hear these speeches and they'd be like, "Keep calm and carry on," and then we'd have our sort of modern day leaders going, "You'll never recover." You see there's a little bit of a difference there in the sort of narrative in which we're saying. And I remember hearing all of this noise, and actually I would go to these meetings and I'd actually start to get quite frustrated. All the negativity. I said, I'm bored, I'm over it. We need to be doing something different. And so during lockdowns, we launched Girl Boss School, which was basically a virtual school where we would bring young people online virtually. We had thousands of young people. We ended up being the largest COVID-19 employment readiness response project funded by the New Zealand government at the time, which was awesome. And we had various cohorts. We had 1,000 young women passionate about healthcare, and we would have mentors from industry mentoring these young people from home. We basically had every young person that didn't want to go to Zoom school would come along to Girl Boss School, and all the different schools would send them to us. And it was incredible how amazing this was. Because every day I'd log in and I'd zoom in to thousands of girls across the country, and I'd say, isn't it so awesome that we're at Girl Boss today? You are so lucky. No other generation has had the opportunity to be part of something like this. Right now, you've got the chance to invest in yourself and your future. You're so lucky. Aren't we so grateful? This is so epic. And what was amazing is Ministry of Education did some research on the impacts of the young people that went through this program. Every single metric drastically improved. So at a time when the media was saying, we've lost all hope for our young people and they're never going to recover, we saw confidence, well-being, career readiness, industry connections, everything absolutely skyrocket. And I genuinely believe the only key difference was the messaging that we were giving. And I like to say to my team, at Girl Boss, we're in the hope business. And I believe that every single one of you are also in the hope business. Because we're in the business of third spaces. Does anyone heard of the concept of third spaces before? Raise your hand. Oh, cool, a lot of us have. That's awesome. So if anyone's not familiar, this is based on a lot of research which shows happiness can be predicted by how many third spaces someone is in. So what is a third space? A third space is anything that's not your workplace/school or your home. Those are two spaces. If you're in any other third space, for example, your local sporting club or Girl Boss Club or going down to your local book club, you are substantially more likely to feel happy and connected. And this research feels that the reason why we're seeing skyrocketing loneliness is because people are in less in-person third spaces. And if we can get more young people to be involved in third spaces, we can make a drastic shift in shifting these feelings of disconnection, loneliness, and fear. Because people may not be going to church at rates that they did in the past. They might not be going down to their local library in the rates that they did in the past. They may feel like a loser at school or a loser in their home, or that they don't belong in these two spaces, but they can come to your sporting club and they can feel like they belong. And that is the incredible power that each and every one of you in this room have. Okay, spendy or savey? Gen Z's thoughts on money. What do we think? Swipe left for spendy, swipe right for savey. Lock in your guess in 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh, we've got full chaos going on now. I think that was pretty 50-50. The correct answer is, dramatic pause, swipe right. For Generation Z, money talks. Generation Z absolutely love money. Generation Z love money so much that 66% value financial security over doing something they love. They've grown up in the aftermath of the 2008 global financial crisis. Their Their parents have drilled into them the importance of making the right financial decision. They love to sort of almost whip themselves and say, I cannot follow my passion, I must follow the dollars. That's actually why they're often referred to as their sibling generation as baby boomers. We see the highest rates of people using investing and saving apps as Generation Z as well. 58% want to start their own business. 76% want to lead others. That's an interesting challenge. 76% want to be the leader. 45% have a side hustle already. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I read that stat, 45% have a side hustle already, I thought, sounds a bit exaggerated. 45% already have some sort of business? But then I tested this theory, and I went through all my different sort of friends and different people I knew, and I thought, actually, one of my friends does an eyelash extension business, another one sells cookies via Instagram, another one does Uber driving, another one does this and that. Yeah, actually, 45% do have some form of side hustle. That stat may be true. Number one factor in choosing a job, a good salary. They've grown up in a time of trillion-dollar companies, from companies like Apple that are worth $1 trillion, and no wonder they want to all be founders and entrepreneurs in the future. Now, this brings us to the million-dollar question when it comes to engaging Gen Z as employees. Now, I call this question the million-dollar question because through our work with Girl Boss, we often do a lot of partnerships with organisations where we go and we survey all the Generation Z staff and we do various programs. And we have to do all this surveying to show the impact of our programs. But honestly, I can predict how happy the Generation Z staff are by how well their senior leaders can answer this question. We almost don't need to do some research. I could just pull a few young people aside, ask them this question, and that would be the best prediction of how their Gen Z staff are doing. So that million-dollar question is going to come up on the screen in 3, 2. This is the million-dollar question when engaging Gen Z as employees. In what ways do you authentically value the entrepreneurial ideas in your organisation? If somebody in your organisation has a good idea and their direct manager rejects it, is it just lost? Do you value the entrepreneurs in your organisation? If you don't use them, you will lose them. Okay, fam, that is a snapshot of what's hot and what's not with Generation Z today. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to just look at this snapshot. Now, I love this part of the presentation because I can see half of you taking photos for careful review later, and the other half of you looking at the dancing rabbit, also for review later. We need all types of people in this world. Okay, 3 more seconds to get that final move there, and we're good. Now, I feel grateful to be part of Generation Z and to be in a time where a young woman raised by a single mum in Kelston below the poverty line can go on to work for NASA, speak at the United Nations. This is the name-dropping part of the presentation. And even meet this guy, Jamie Oliver. Hands up if you know who Jamie Oliver is. Epic. Okay, so I met Jamie Oliver through when I was studying in the UK. Jamie Oliver is a celebrity chef and owner of a $500 million cooking empire. He also likes to mentor young leaders, so I was selected to be mentored personally by Jamie when I was studying in the UK. He is the single most charismatic person I've ever met and the best people leader I've ever seen. And he shared with me a piece of advice that was so inspiring that inspires me each and every day. And I'd love to share that with you now. He started by sharing his own story. He said, Alexia, when I started my very first restaurant at age 25, I made the decision to only employ people from the following backgrounds. The criteria for who could work at Jamie's very first restaurant was 1, be homeless, 2, have drug and alcohol problems, or 3, just leave prison. That was the criteria for who could work at Jamie's very first restaurant. A little bit different to the standard hiring criteria. And when Jamie shared that decision with the people around him, they thought he was absolutely nuts. Jamie's own father didn't speak to him for a year, as he thought Jamie was throwing away his life to give a hand up to others. But Jamie's decision to do something different propelled him and his restaurant into global fame. It was the single most decision which completely changed Jamie's life forever. He shared the story with me, and then he said, Alexia, when you walk into a boardroom, when you walk into a meeting, who is the person that holds the most power? The one with the most hope. Be the one with hope, be the one with vision, be the one with optimism. And I saw when he was leading his team at Jamie Oliver HQ that he would challenge his team in meetings. Are we being the most hopeful versions of ourselves? Could we be a little bit more visionary? How could we be 10% more optimistic? And I think particularly in New Zealand, we tend to shrink ourselves and make ourselves smaller. But when we project hope and vision, we give strength to the people around us. I also got to meet this guy. Anyone want to yell out who this guy is? David Beckham? Did someone say? I missed it. What was it? Yeah. Yes. So this is Victoria's husband, also known as David Beckham, and I want to share with you that I get no cool points from knowing David Beckham with Generation Z. I sometimes will say, I know David Beckham, and they'll go, oh, who's that? And I'll go, oh, you know, the Spice Girls, and I'll start singing, if you want to be my lover. And then they'll just be looking at me weird and go, oh, yes, my mum listens to that song. So, but I've got a funny story that I'd love to end on about when I met David Beckham, and I thought, what better audience than all these sporty peeps in front of me. So I met David Beckham at the networking function after I received my medal from the Queen. So to put yourself in the story, I'm here at Buckingham Palace, gold chandeliers, and I look over and I see David Beckham, one of the most famous sports players in history, standing sad and lonely by the juice table. So I think to myself, well, I better do my good deed of the day and go cheer up David Beckham. So I bounce right up to David Beckham, and we're chatting away, and we're talking about girl boss, we're talking about New Zealand, we're talking about gender politics, the usual combo. And then a royal staff member comes up to David and I, somebody who works at Buckingham Palace. So this person who works at Buckingham Palace comes up to us and says, "Excuse me, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan request your presence." David goes, "Oh, mine." The royal staff member goes, "Oh no, sorry, Miss Alexia's." And as I'm being escorted away from David Beckham, like, "Bye, David," to have my one-on-one with Prince Harry and Meghan, I'm thinking to myself, my life will never top this level of cool. And this was also the moment 10 seconds after I stood up David Beckham, which was pretty cool. And that did end up being the New Zealand Herald photo of the day, which was pretty epic. Now, reflecting on my journey, it only became possible because I wasn't afraid to be a little bit different. When I told my mum at 16 I wanted to start my very own social enterprise, she replied, "Why don't you go to university, get a normal job, and then you can donate to charity, you know." When I told my careers counsellor that I wanted to forego 83,000 in university scholarships to work full-time on Girl Boss, he replied, "Maybe you should go to university first and then you can work on that Girl Boss thing." But I chose to ignore that very sensible advice, spurred by the belief that if you want opportunities that not many people get, you need to make choices that not many people make. You need to make the choice to be the most hopeful person in the room. You need to make the choice to be optimistic when no one else is. You make the choice to be visionary where it's more cool to be negative. And as for my mum, she now works full-time for me. So I got a bit of the last laugh there. So a big thank you to each and every one of you. It was absolutely fantastic to talk to you today. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, keep up the conversations. We do have time for questions, but before we get into questions, I'd love for you to jump up if you can, turn to the person next to you, give them a high five, tell them about how awesome that presentation was, and discuss what you were doing at 16. So let's do that, 30 seconds for a high five, and then we'll get into questions. Yeah, I've got another high five. We started with it. Yeah. Okay, team, if you can grab your seat, we will have time for one or two or more questions. Good. Now, anyone can put up their hand. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I get asked lots of questions because I travel all up and down the country. And if you're thinking, actually, perhaps my question is a dumb question, I just want to remind you that there is one question I get asked more than any other question. And I can tell when this question is coming by the speed in which a 10-year-old girl in the front row raises her hand very quickly. And I can tell if her hand is really stretched, that means she's going to ask me my most common question. And my most common question is, what did the Queen smell like? Number one most asked question I get. What did the Queen smell like? What did David Beckham smell like? What did Prince Harry smell like? What did everybody smell like? So I truly get asked it all. Any questions from the floor? Yes?
Wait.
Great presentation. Where do you see girl power in 10 years' time?
That's a good question. Where do I see girl power in 10 years' time? Well, if we look at research from the World Economic Forum, it says it will take 128 years to reach full gender equality. Despite going backwards during COVID, we're generally making slow and steady progress. I don't know about you, but I'm not that excited about slow and steady progress. My Generation Z's attention span is measured in seconds, not decades. So I'm really passionate about this generation being the generation to change these stats once and for all. It actually reminds me, I was on a panel with a top female lawyer, Mei Chen. You may know her, she's quite a powerhouse. And she turned to me and she said, "Alexia, I'm old. And people have been saying to me for years, 'Don't worry, May, women are coming up in the pipeline, it will just take time.' Well, they must have died in that pipeline because it's been years. Where are they? Where are these women?" But I really believe that this will be the generation. We've got to fill them up with energy, we've got to fill them up with hope, we've got to fill them up with excitement, and then we can go forth and have equal opportunities for all of our young people. So that's my vision of where I would like to see. Girl Boss is having our 10-year anniversary in October, and I hope by our next 10-year anniversary that we've made a huge dent in this. So that would definitely be my goal. Thank you.
Any other questions? Got time for maybe one more?
Any questions? No such thing as a dumb question. Yeah. Kia ora. Yes.
He had an expression, main character syndrome, which is intuitively most of you would get. You're the centre of the universe, or that universe. So why did I get that wrong? How can you have this expression from a 17-year-old with main character syndrome, but you're also saying that that generation wants to be main character?
Yeah, absolutely. So to key you up with a bit of the slang around those sort of expressions, you hear the term main character energy, which is a positive thing. You want to be main character energy. That means you're like the boss. You're like the cool, character, main character energy. You don't want to be an NPC. Anyone know what an NPC is? Okay, do you want to yell out what an NPC stands for? Non-playable character. So an NPC is a non-playable character. So if you've ever watched a video game and it's the character that's just like, and you're on the mission, and then you just come up to it and it like gives you your next quest. You can't play that character. It just stands there and says, you must take the path, That's an NPC. So that's sort of the term. So that's almost an insult. You call someone that you think's not like in control cool, they're an NPC, and your main character energy, then you are like the star of the game in this Gen Z slang world. Main character syndrome is also can be used as a bit of an insult if you're like, oh, they think that they're the shiz. You would say, oh, they've got main character syndrome. But at the same time, I would still say that's not necessarily at odds, because you still would rather be the main character as opposed to an NPC in general Gen Z slang. So that's just a little bit of deep dive. Hopefully you didn't get brain rot from all of those slang terms, but that has just got you a little bit more clued up with how the Gen Z are speaking to each other these days. So if you ever want to insult someone, and I'm not encouraging you to do that because we're all about positivity, optimism, and hope, that was the point of the speech, you could call them an NPC.
And I think that's probably the right place to end the session.
Thank you all.
Alexia Hilbertidou, founder of Girl Boss New Zealand, you are an absolute powerhouse. Thank you for sharing parts of your story, but also insights into Gen Z. And a couple of takeaways for me: the impact of positive messaging, and also of third spaces, which that was new for me, and how you actually tap into both of those when it comes to Gen Z, but also a real beautiful reminder about the power of hope. Your enthusiasm and energy this afternoon is the perfect way for us to end our conference on day one. So please put your hands together once
Thank
again
you.
for Alexia Hilbertidu.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I've got a beautiful little gift.
Oh, thank you so much.
So thank you, Alexia. Man, what a fantastic day, and again, a perfect way to end day one of our conference. We've explored the evolving landscape of youth engagement, leadership and innovation, gaining valuable insights from experts, rangatahi, and also change makers. From generational shifts to the power of social media, we hope that today has set the stage for meaningful action. Rest up, reflect, and get ready for another inspiring day tomorrow. Now, I know that in just a few hours, many of you will be back for the 2025 New Zealand Sport and Recreation Awards, where we will celebrate the last year and the successes of the last year. For those who are attending the awards tonight, please note that it is allocated tables, and you will find your table number in the conference app. When it comes to seating, if you cannot find your allocated number and you think that you did register for the awards tonight, then please visit the concierge desk in the foyer and they can help you. We invite you back here to join us for the pre-function area at 6:30 for welcome drinks, and we also ask you to be seated inside the main room by 7 p.m. tonight. So to close our conference, I think it's only appropriate that we do a quick karakia to clear the path for the rest of the afternoon and for those of you who are coming back here this evening. Ka whakairia te tapu, kia wā te ai te ara, kia tūruki whakatahai, hui e, tai ki e. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and if you are coming back tonight, have a hell of a time, and I look forward to catching up with you all again tomorrow. Kia ora tātou, katoa. Kia ora tātou katoa. Can I ask you all, please, politely to move out of this room? Staff have to turn it around ahead of tonight's event. You can catch up just outside the room, but if we can get you moving, that'd be lovely. Kia ora tātou.